Welcome to the Kenya Wantam Notam Movement, KWM Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into a fascinating piece from the KWM website. It came out July 12th, 2025. The title grabs you. Raila Odinga's call for dialogue, a dangerous distraction you shouldn't fall for. So our mission today is pretty clear. Let's unpack the arguments, the insights in this article. We want to give you a really solid understanding of it's a very direct take on Kenyan politics and leadership. Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah, and it's so important to look closely at analyses like this one. I mean, if you want to be properly informed about where the country might be heading, understanding these different viewpoints, especially critical ones, is essential. Just to be clear, we're here to explore what the source says, understands arguments, not necessarily to back them ourselves. It's about giving you the tools to see the full picture.
Absolutely. And this article, it doesn't pull any punches, does it? It jumps straight into its main claim. It says Raila Odinga's calls for dialogue. And not just talk. The source calls it a calculated diversion. Basically, something designed to keep things exactly as they are, the status quo. And that phrase, dangerous distraction you shouldn't fall for. Wow. That sets a really strong tone from the get-go, doesn't it?
It really does. And the core idea here, from the article's perspective, is that what looks like an attempt at finding common ground is actually a political strategy. The article argues dialogue here isn't about solving problems. It's a tool, maybe even a weapon, used to kind of solidify the existing power structures. It's presented not as a genuine effort, but more like, well, political theater.
Political theater. Interesting. So a performance rather than substance.
That's the argument, yes.
Yeah.
Like a carefully managed show designed to create an impression of progress, maybe divert public attention while, certain interests quietly consolidate their position. The source presents it as a major red flag for anyone watching Kenyan politics. Look deeper, it says.
And they zoom in on specific language too, right? Like the word concave.
Exactly. The article picks up on Raila's use of concave.
Yeah.
And it suggests he's using it not just geometrically, but to imply almost a kind of deep, unchallengeable wisdom. Like divine wisdom, the article says, which it argues is pretty out of place for a politician engaged in what it calls games with the nation's future.
So how does that word choice, concave, connect back to the whole dialogue as a distraction argument?
Well, the article suggests it's a rhetorical trick. By using a word that implies this profound insight, it argues Raila is trying to position himself and his call for dialogue as sort of beyond question, like it's the only logical, maybe even divinely ordained path forward. And that, the source says, is part of the staged spectacle. It makes the dialogue seem necessary, even inevitable. But the article insists its real purpose is just to benefit only a select few. It states very clearly this isn't progress, unity, or hope for the people. It's a show.
A powerful critique. So if the dialogue is just a show, what's the real story happening backstage, according to this KWM article? This takes us into their idea of the illusion of rivalry. The article argues this dialogue isn't about finding solutions for Kenya at all. Instead, it claims it's about Raila securing more control for himself and his allies, including, interestingly, President William Ruto. Now that's where it gets really complex, suggesting they aren't true adversaries in this context.
Precisely. The article basically puts forward this idea of elite capture, where the political system is kind of run by and for a small group at the top. It claims the rivalry we see between Ruto and Raila. It's largely an illusion, a carefully crafted narrative, it calls it, designed to make sure their positions, both of them, stay unshaken.
So like a performance to keep the public focused on the drama between them while they both maintain power?
That's the core assertion, yeah. It allows them, according to the source, to keep their grip on power, control resources, and essentially keep the political game predictable and, well, profitable for those involved. It suggests the whole thing is less about ideology and more about maintaining control.
Wow. That's a very cynical view of mainstream politics. If this rivalry is an illusion, what does the article say happens to ordinary Kenyans while this performance is going on?
Well, the consequences are painted as pretty grim. The article says while the elite play these games, the ordinary Kenyan is left behind. And it gets specific. Crumbling infrastructure, failing schools, and overcrowded, underfunded hospitals. So this alleged illusion isn't harmless entertainment. It directly diverts focus and presumably resources from where they're desperately needed. The conclusion drawn is stark. The dialogue is just a tactic to preserve a broken system, a system where, the article claims, a few benefit hugely while the majority struggle. It really emphasizes that human cost.
It really does. And then the article introduces this phrase, quite memorable, bread-based government. It says, Kenya's current political structure is best described as a bread-based government. Oh, this seems to capture the essence of their critique, right? Portraying leaders like Raila, Ruto, and their allies as, quote, far more concerned with what they can eat than with what they can offer to the people. That's blunt. What exactly does bread-based mean in practical terms, according to the source?
It essentially means that the primary motivation isn't public service, it's self-enrichment. It's pointing towards what political scientists might call rent-seeking behavior, using your position not to build a country but to extract personal wealth from the system. The KWM article really leans into this, arguing these leaders, in its view, have no interest in fixing fundamental problems like infrastructure, healthcare, education for everyone. Their main goal, the article claims, is just maintaining the power to exploit the nation's wealth for their own benefit.
That's a sweeping claim against the entire political establishment. Does the article give any credit for, say, infrastructure projects or healthcare initiatives that have happened? Or is it purely focused on this negative motivation?
It seems to be primarily focused on the motivation. It doesn't really get into evaluating specific projects, positively or negatively. Its lens is fixed on why things are done or not done. And it connects this to history, claiming the same elite families profited under Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki, leaving ordinary people behind. It makes a point of saying no ordinary Kikuyu, Luo, or Kalenjin benefits from this system, try to cut across ethnic lines and frame it purely as an elite versus the people issue. The argument is that the system itself is designed to channel wealth upwards, regardless of who's nominally in charge.
Which leads directly into how the source views Raila and Ruto themselves as two faces, one corrupt system. It argues they've both been central figures for decades, and any promises they make are just smoke and mirrors, leading, ultimately, to a Kenya that's more fractured and disillusioned. That phrase, smoke and mirrors, it suggests intentional deception, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It implies that any appearance of change or hope is just a facade, hiding the unchanged reality underneath. From this perspective, their long careers aren't a sign of valuable experience, but evidence of their deep integration into and benefit from the system the article critiques. They become symbols of that bread-based government, making any talk of real reform seem, well, unbelievable to the source. It suggests the cycle just continues.
So if the dialogue is theater, the rivalry is fake, and the system serves the few, where does that leave the average citizen, according to KWM? What questions should people be asking? It really pushes the listener, you, to fundamentally question what value these long-standing leaders bring. The article bluntly asks, what have Raila and Ruto actually done for Kenya other than line their own pockets? It's not just rhetoric. It's a direct challenge to evaluate their actual, tangible impact over the years. And so these calls for dialogue, the article sees them as just more distractions, ways to keep the public occupied with the same old political games while the underlying structure remains untouched. It's a call to demand results, not just talk.
We've covered a lot of critical points from the KWM article. It's a strong perspective, definitely gives you food for thought. And if this discussion resonates with you, if you feel that urge to engage more, remember the Kenya Wantum Notum movement, KWM, isn't just putting out articles, it's a platform. You can go to www.wantumnotum.com, that's WANTAMNOTAM.com side. Create an account and actually share your ideas for your village, your city, your whole nation. It's about adding your voice to the conversation for change. Okay, moving forward from the critique, the article does pivot towards something quite hopeful, maybe, empowering, certainly. It says very clearly, the future of Kenya doesn't belong to Raila or Ruto. It belongs to you, the next generation of leaders. That's a big shift, putting the power, the responsibility squarely onto the citizens. What does that look like in practice, according to the source? How do people become that next generation?
That's a crucial question, isn't it? How do you actually take that power? The article doesn't seem to be pushing one specific party or person. It's more about a change in attitude. It urges people to stop waiting for the same tired faces to lead you, and crucially, to be bold enough to reject the politics of the past. So it's less about just finding new faces and more about demanding a completely different kind of politics. One focused on national good, not personal gain. The next generation seems to mean those who embrace this new approach, regardless of age.
And the warning is pretty stark if people don't make that shift, if they continue to engage with the politics described as distractions.
Yes, the warning is very direct. The KWM article says, flat out, don't be fooled into thinking that his concave will bring about real change. It won't. It loops back to that critique of language, reinforcing the idea that it's style over substance, maybe even manipulation. The alternative presented is clear. Kenyans need to demand better. They need to actively look for and support leaders who genuinely seem interested in the country's welfare. It's really called for proactive citizenship, moving from just watching the political drama to actively trying to change the script, the implied consequence of not doing this. Just more of the same, more disillusionment, more stagnation.
So what does this all mean? If we boil it down, the core message from this KWM source seems to be critical. Look past the headlines, question the motives behind political moves like calls for dialogue, understand the arguments about underlying systems, and crucially, recognize your own power, your own role in shaping what comes next. It's almost an invitation to step up.
Exactly. And connecting it to the bigger picture. It suggests that real fundamental change rarely trickles down from the top. It often sparks when ordinary people stop just being an audience to the political theater, when they start asking the hard questions, demanding accountability, and actively participating in building something different, whether that's locally or nationally. This KWM article is a very potent example of that call to action, urging you, the listener, to be part of driving that change.
And a final reminder, you can be part of that conversation. Join the Kenya Wantum Notum movement, KWM. Go to www.wantumnotum.com. Create your account, share your thoughts, your solutions, help shape the future of your village, your city, your nation.
Thank you for listening to the Kenya Wantum Notum Movement, KWM podcast.